After finding out that Haemund had killed Cuthred, Alfred angrily accused Haemund.
And now, still drenched in the martyr's blood, you come and defile this holy place too. Surely to God you do not mean to try and defend yourself.
But Haemund came prepared. He had evidence of Cuthred's intention to rebel. Because Alfred attempted to interfere with church privileges and ally with pagans, they plotted to overthrow Alfred. Haemund believed that discovering and eliminating the opposition leaders in time should be credited as a merit, not a fault. Aside from Cuthred, many in the church and council were involved. So Alfred intended to return the bishopric to Haemund to continue investigating the traitors, since he was the only supporter Alfred had left. However, this idea angered Ethelred, who believed that Haemund must pay for his grave sins.
That is not your decision, brother. For I am king and I alone can make that determination.
Lagertha was very unsettled upon hearing the news of Haemund's imprisonment. Without their only protector, they were in great danger. Thus, Ob remembered the proposal to convert to Christianity. This infuriated Bjorn. Their father was waiting for them in Valhalla, and if they converted to Christianity, wouldn't they be unable to meet their father again?
Sometimes I wonder if you're Ragnar still at all.
Later, Alfred announced 3 major decisions at a meeting. First, he decided to release Haemund and restore his bishopric, despite strong protests from the council and nobles. But Alfred still forcefully dismissed the opposition. In such a turbulent period, he couldn't abandon the nation's guardian. As England's greatest warrior, Haemund must shine on the battlefield, not die on the execution ground. Second, he announced his marriage to his fiancée, Elswith. Third, he announced Ub and Torvi's conversion to Christianity. Aside from the marriage, the other 2 announcements caused strong dissatisfaction among the council.
I ask all of you, in God's name, to recognize and celebrate this conversion.
And even Ethelred complained to his mother about Alfred's decisions. As for why Ethelred was constantly at odds with Alfred recently, one reason was because he was in love with Cuthred's daughter. He wanted to execute Haemund to avenge his girlfriend's father. The second reason was that he wanted to overthrow Alfred's rule and reclaim the throne for himself. Haemund is wrong about one thing. The leader of the opposition is not Cuthred but Ethelred. Although Judith didn't know this yet, she had already sensed Ethelred's thirst for the throne. Meanwhile, Harold had arrived in York and, after a brief rest, led his army towards Wessex. Accompanying Harold in battle were the Lord of York, Olafson, and his wife, Gunhild. Harold was immediately taken with the tall woman, even though she was already married. Upon learning of the Vikings' movements, the opposition quickly convened an underground meeting. They planned to use the opportunity to call a war council and launch a coup during the meeting to capture Alfred and Haemund, among others, and then support Ethelred's ascent to the throne.
I agree. Call the council.
Everything was proceeding according to plan. They not only replaced the guards with their own men but also smuggled weapons into the palace, ready to act at any moment. But at the critical moment, Ethelred couldn't overcome his psychological barrier. He couldn't bring himself to act against his own brother, with the leader hesitating to give the signal. The plan fell through.
I've decided to lead you into battle. But I know that I have the support of my beloved brother, Ethelred.
I can't. Then we are lost.
Later, Bjorn brought a man named Magnus, who claimed to be the son of Ragnar and Queen Quenthrith. Yes, he was the boy who was driven away after Ragnar's denial. Ub had heard from his mother about the rumor that his father denied sleeping with Quenthrith, and Lagertha also knew it was merely about urination, so they suspected this supposed son had ulterior motives. But Bjorn believed Magnus' story, knowing his father's penchant for dalliances. After all, Ragnar slept with a slog right in front of him.
I don't want to argue.
You don't believe me? I can see it.
So, could they accept Magnus? What really are his intentions? Do you know what hell really looks like? One day, Haemund had a nightmare where he found himself falling into hell, surrounded by demons and lost souls. Then he saw an egg about to hatch, but inside was a baby already covered in worms. God then appeared to Haemund as a deer and told him he must abandon his unclean deeds, or he would be tormented by the flames of hell forever, with the cries of sinners constantly echoing around him. Therefore, he must break up with Lagertha.
You can't do this. You can't do this to me. I thought you loved me.
Haemund did not deny or argue. As a devout Christian, he always took his dreams as divine guidance. Before departing, Alfred arrested an opposition member, all thanks to Judith. With the army gone, Judith was in charge of the interrogation. Her goal was clear: to extract the full list of opposition members through severe torture. On the eve of battle, Ub arrived at Harold's camp, hoping to exchange gold for peace. As a Christian, Harold couldn't believe a son of Ragnar would betray the gods and believe in God. Still, Ub gave Harold a day to consider. Knowing the renown of Bjorn and Ub was more intimidating than any army. After Ub left, Magnus approached Harold, claiming to be Ragnar's son. He believed Ub and the others were beyond redemption and unworthy of being the sons of the Viking legend, Ragnar. As Ragnar's son, Magnus didn't want to fight for England, so he chose to join Harold's side. The next day, Ub did not show up with the gold, and Harold realized he had been deceived. The supposed peace talks were just a stalling tactic. The English must have secured advantageous terrain and prepared for battle. Sure enough, when Harold led his forces to the battlefield, the English had long been waiting, surprisingly choosing a scorched piece of land. As they wondered, Ub lit the prearranged straw. It turns out that they have made a semicircle with the straws on the charred ground, so that only the straws will burn when the fire is lit, and the flames will block the Vikings' retreat. Haemund's premonition was coming true. The battle was about to turn into a hell on earth.
To battle! For Christ! For Wessex! For England!
Olafsson was immediately killed by an arrow to the head, and Gunhild, as fierce as Lagertha, kept fighting valiantly even as some of her side fled.
Do you want you? The gods are watching!
Despite their recent breakup, Lagertha was still keeping an eye on her lover, and the traitorous Magnus truly had some skills. To live up to the identity of Ragnar's son, he must have undergone extensive combat training. Alfred, having changed his appearance, was no longer weak, thanks to Ub's training, but he was still overpowered and knocked down by the enemy, saved in the nick of time by Ethelred.
The king.
Haemund's affection for Lagertha remained unabated. He watched her with a smile like a happy child. Last time, Haemund was attacked because he was distracted, and this time, it cost him his life. His biggest regret at that moment must have been his decision to break up with Lagertha, and Lagertha was unfortunately struck in the leg by an enemy, and when she killed her attacker and looked back at Haemund, he had already been hit by several arrows and fell to his knees. Then Gunhild ended Haemund's life. Once again, Lagertha watched her lover die in front of her. Gunhild not only killed Haemund but also nearly made Bjorn lose an eye. Even Bjorn was taken aback by her strength, so he made sure to exert all his effort to subdue her. Yes, it was subduing, not killing. It seems Bjorn also took a liking to her. The English's bravery took Harold by surprise, and seeing his warriors heavily decimated, he knew the tide had turned. Though they won the battle, England lost a great warrior. Though Haemund was not a bishop who kept himself clean, he was always God's most faithful servant.
No one else will ever be fit to carry his sword, which will be buried with him.
With Haemund's death in battle, Lagertha disappeared, and everyone searched the entire battlefield without finding a trace of her.
I don't think we are going to find her.
Ever since Gunhild slashed him with her sword, Bjorn hasn't been able to stop thinking about her, because her tall stature fits the Viking aesthetic perfectly. Moreover, Bjorn recognizes Gunhild's extraordinary combat skills, but he doesn't want to force her into anything. After all, bullying prisoners of war isn't his style. So, Bjorn unbound Gunhild, but her reaction took him by surprise.
Oh! Oh, what was that for?
I was just exercising my freedom.
Just like that, Bjorn easily won Gunhild's favor. To thank Ub and the others for helping him fend off a formidable enemy, Alfred fulfilled his promise. He truly gave them East Anglia, as Egbert had promised. This marked a historic event for the Vikings' formal integration into England, finally realizing Ragnar's dream.
And now I welcome you. Formally. as allies and as friends.
The meeting then moved on to the next item.
Guards, arrest the traitors.
Alfred arrested all members of the opposition for treason, clearly having gotten that list from Judith. However, Alfred did not arrest Ethelred. After all, Ethelred had saved his life on the battlefield, but Judith believed the matter couldn't be let go so easily. At the very least, Ethelred had to explain himself and admit his wrongdoings in person, making him understand that he was spared by Alfred's mercy, not luck. But Alfred was unwilling to confront his own brother, so Judith had to deal with the matter herself. Afterwards, the opposition members were hanged in public, providing a strong deterrent to Ethelred. Faced with reality, Ethelred could only confess everything to his mother, sincerely admitting his mistake and swearing to protect Alfred with his life. Seeing Ethelred's sincerity finally put Judith's heart at ease. It wasn't long before Alfred brought them to East Anglia. To avoid previous attacks, Alfred dispatched his own guards to protect the Viking settlers. Ub and Torvi were ready to embrace their new life, but Bjorn didn't want to stay and farm. Even though Lagertha was missing, he still wanted to take back Kattegat for his mother. In his conversation with Gunhild, Bjorn learned that Harald's next plan was also to attack Kattegat, so he bid farewell to Ub and Torvi and went to join Harald with Gunhild. Although Bjorn had defeated Harald on the battlefield, Harald bore no grudge against Bjorn. Not only did he welcome Bjorn's arrival, but he also agreed to take him to attack Kattegat together.
It has, after all, brought us back together again. Who knew what the gods had in store for us?
This highlighted the Vikings' tendency to band together. Unless there were deep-seated vendettas, they typically collaborated for mutual benefit. However, Harald was irked that the woman he fancied was now with someone else, especially Bjorn. On the other side, Alfred fell into a coma again, and no one knew what illness he had or could treat it. When the news of Alfred's unconscious state spread, the council and the church raised questions again, still reluctant to pledge allegiance to a sickly king. But Ethelred easily calmed everyone's emotions. It was clear that Ethelred still had high popularity in the council, but this was exactly what Judith feared. She worried that these people would support Ethelred to seize power while Alfred was in a coma. So, Judith wanted to know the content of their recent conversation.
I say to them what I have a mind to say, to heal my poor brother.
Though both were her sons, Judith always favored Alfred. She wouldn't allow anyone to covet Alfred's throne, not even her other son. Thus, Judith secretly poisoned Ethelred's wine and had dinner and chatted with him as if nothing was amiss. And Ethelred, just like usual, had dinner and chatted with his mother, but the poison acted quickly, not even allowing him to finish the meal.
What have you done?
That you have ever accepted your brother as king. You could always be a danger to him.
So you poisoned me? What kind of mother are you?
Judith poisoned one son for the sake of the other. Although this plot differs from history, it's still shocking to watch. Compared to Judith poisoning her own son and Quenthrith poisoning her brother, Ivar's fratricide seems almost trivial.